Hello, welcome to another video of the Ramey Family Adventures. This is my beautiful wife, Rachel,
Hello.
joining me today. In this video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about debt and what it means to be debt-free and how you can get there and the fruits of being debt-free and what that's going to look like for your life once you are debt-free. And so, we're just going to go ahead and right into this. I kind of want to give some background of just, we can share differences involving money, growing up, what that looks like for us. So for me, growing up, I came from a family of a younger brother, obviously my mom and dad, and I'm the oldest of the family when it comes to their children, and they financed everything. They financed both cars, they financed hardwood floors, they financed appliances, they financed their bed, they financed absolutely everything that they purchased, their phones even. And so for me growing up, all I saw was financing. And that really took effect on me mentally because my image of money kind of got skewed a little bit just because I was like, well, there's no reason to save up for something if I can just finance it and pay for it over time. And, that was kind of my worldview growing up. Rachel can kind of share a little bit for her.
Yeah, I was the exact opposite. So I bought everything in full. My parents bought everything in full. There was nothing we ever financed. So to me, when I saw people financing things, I always was really confused by that. Like, why would you go into debt if you don't have to? And if you have to do that, why would you just not buy it in the first place? So when Michael and I were dating, there was that tension there because I would see him like finance phones and finance like other things, and it was just really uncomfortable to me because I didn't like the idea of owing somebody else. It was like all these invisible IOUs were created when you do that. That kind of erode your security mentally of like being able to sustain yourself and just being in control of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we were dating, there was a point where I was in mix of like an internship and some other stuff, so I had some debts and I wasn't able to get a job just due to scheduling. And there was a point where I literally owed my mom like $1,000, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Well, at least where I am now. But since being married and really just talking about our values and our family and really what we want ultimately for our lives, when we do get older, is we need to get our finances on track, because if we didn't establish good habits early in our marriage, we don't know where things would go, right? Statistically, divorce is very high. Depending on what statistic you're looking at, it's, late like 60% or 70%, and the most common argument in a marriage is actually finances. And so a lot of people, even if they're making a lot of money, they might not have a budget, or they're just not talking about that often. And so they will keep wondering, where's all my money going? What are these loopholes? And so, gratefully for us, we've had some really awesome people in our life, Chris and Nora, who have been mentors to us over these last 2 years, who have really helped us get on track financially very soon in our marriage as well. We met these people 2 months into our marriage, and they've been walking us through in a lot of different areas. And so, through that, we are, been able to become debt-free. We've been able to pay off $29,000 of debt. We did it in 1 year, so we've been debt-free since last October. And, some of the fruits that have come with that, especially for me, for my worldview, when I was able to buy when we got new phones, like 6 months or a year ago, we ended up buying Rachel a phone, the iPhone 8, right? And we were able to buy it in cash. And it was something that, it makes you think differently when you buy things in cash rather than making payments. Because if you think about it this way, if you see an item like a phone, for example, and you're like, oh, well, I can afford $20 a month for that phone. I'm fine with that. But if you look at it in a different sense and you go, oh, wow, that's $800 I have to fork out right now, it makes you think, do I really need that item? And what happens with people is, if they don't think in buying things outright in cash, they'll just keep purchasing things they can afford, and then before they know it, when they get to their end of the month and they got all their paychecks and everything like that, they don't have that much money to play with, because they have all this money that they owe to people. And so that's kind of what I've experienced. And so when we were able to purchase our phones in cash, it was a big blessing. It was also nerve-wracking, but being able to pay off both of our cars, both our cars are paid off, and we have 50K miles on them, so we're set for the next probably 5 or 6 years, never having to pay car payments. Being able for us personally to buy car insurance for the year is another blessing. So just we don't have that financial stress that maybe a lot of families might have, and that's because of coaching that we've received and just being able to get on a strong budget.
Yeah, and then I think also like, whether you're religious or not, there's like whole concept of like whoever is the borrower is slave to the lender, and really like we don't think about that nowadays because it's just so normal for everybody to be in debt. But if you look at people that are like millionaires and doing really well, they don't think the same way that we do. And I mean, there's many times in history where economically, like maybe debt becomes easier to get into, and then there's a point where it kind of like they freeze it and they make it much harder for you to get more debt, and then you're stuck with like your current situation. And so obviously like right now like America's doing pretty great, but if there ever was a time where America got really bad, like as in the Great Depression, a lot of people like that we know would not be doing so well because they don't have any like buffer room, right? And being debt free gives you so much more buffer room than the average person that is living paycheck to paycheck. And if you continue to live paycheck to paycheck, like how many weeks could you last if you lost your job? Like you're on the brink of disaster. What if something happens in your health and you can't work, or you have all these expenses that you can't pay anymore because it's too much out of the insurance kind of budget? And so, I mean, there's just so many things that can happen to you that you could be proactive about now by getting rid of debt so that if something bad were to happen to you, you wouldn't feel it so intensely versus like if something happened to us and we get a flat tire, we don't even stress about it because we know we have enough money to just pay for it. We don't have to stress. We don't have to fight. Whereas if it was like all we had was like $2 every, after the paychecks come in, and we had a flat tire, then that would be a much more stressful conversation.
Right.
So it gives a lot more padding and gives a lot more emotional stability even in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And also when it comes to, that journey of paying off your debt, we were really taught, we were taught through like Dave Ramsey and kind of his style of paying off debt, which is like the debt snowball, which Rachel can, obviously elaborate on that a little bit better than I can. And then we have a Google Sheet document that I'll go over and just a very brief overview, and I'll have a link of that in the description for you so you can have some practicality and plug your own numbers in there. But basically, that year of paying off debt, we were taught to have $1,000 emergency fund. We had a little bit more than that at the time. And then everything that was left over from all your bills, rent, electricity, groceries, all that stuff, right? Whatever you have left over, put that towards debt. And so for us in that solid year, our bank account literally just stood still. When is this going to end? Like, when is we going to see it go up? Like, it's just let it happen. But and at the same time, like we probably weren't eating the healthiest too. We were just eating top ramen, like the cheapest food we can. But to us, getting out of debt was so important because we didn't want to owe anybody money. Because like Rachel kind of touched on a little bit, what if I lost my job, or what if she lost her job? Like, and then we were in debt. Like those payments still have to come. Like we don't just get to stop because we are going through some hardship. And so, Rachel can now kind of elaborate a little bit more on, what the debt snowball effect looks like, and maybe give a little bit more guidance in regards to the Google Sheet.
Yeah, so the way it works out, and I mean, kind of like give more context, right? Like debt is never usually a math thing. It's not usually people that are bad at math that are in debt. It's usually people that emotionally are not mature to get out of it, or emotionally are okay with being in that mess, right? And so you have to think of it from a standpoint of motivation and like your reptilian brain, almost to say the part of you that's like got emotions is what is usually getting you in trouble in the first place. And so the way this debt snowball works is you line up all your debts from least amount to greatest amount, and regardless of the percentage of interest on them, you start with the smallest one first. And then once you finish that one off, you get to the next one. And so you're basically throwing as much money as you can while still maintaining that emergency fund at it until you've eliminated those debts one by one until you get to the last one. And main thing to keep in mind here is like when you pay off debt one, you don't go like, oh, well, like I can just like ease up a little bit on this guy. You take all the money that you would have been paying to this one and you keep paying it to this one. And if you have like minimum payments on the other ones, you just pay the minimum payment here to keep you out of trouble while focusing all your extra cash on the one that you're trying to tackle at that moment. And the main reason for that, and ignoring kind of the percentage for any of the other ones, like even if this one is like 0.2% versus this one's like 10%, the reason is that when you've beat one of those, you're psychologically going to think I'm winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have less people that you owe,
Right.
and you feel more free already. And that makes you more excited to go for the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one once you're done with that. If you try to tackle, say, like $100,000 debt that's only on 2%, or that's like, say it's $100,000 and you got like 4% interest on it, versus a like $50,000 one that has like 10%, or I'm doing it wrong, it has like 2% on it, and you go, oh, I should attack the one that has a higher percentage thing first. But it takes so long to pay off $100,000 that you're going to get demotivated and probably quit.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you start with the other one, then you'll get much more excited when you've got that finished, and then you'll be more motivated to keep working on the next one.
Okay, so now we're in the Google Sheet here. We're going to go ahead and get right into this. As you can see right here in these 4 lines, you have your revenue that you're bringing in that month. So you will plug your paychecks. If you're on commission, be sure to get as realistic as possible and educating that and having it accurate, because that's going to be important for when you're paying off your debt. And so then also include some other other incomes that you might have, like maybe you're doing Uber outside work or something like that, and then it will tally your total monthly income. And you want to do it in the first half and the second half. This is just important because maybe you have some stuff that comes out on the first of the month and you want to be aware of that. Again, this is why we're budgeting, so you know exactly where your money's going. And then you got your expenses, which would be like, if you tithe, you have that. You got your rent, your mortgage, utilities, your auto insurance, internet, gym, electricity, phone, cell phone bills, and maybe some other expenses that you might want to include there as well. Then you have your cash envelope system, which will be your groceries. Activity budget is for us, and then that we use. You can also have this if you want. If you're single, just include your activities budget and your fun money. If you're not single and you married or you're dating someone, you can have that, just maybe taking your spouse out, etc. And then also you have date night money. Again, this one's more tailored if you're married. That way you can plan date nights accordingly once a week. That's what we try to do every single week. And then you have your fun money, which if you're single, again, it's your fun money to spend on clothes or whatever it is that you want to spend it on. If you're married, this is individual, so you both get your own budget to spend whatever you want. And then you have your miscellaneous expenses, which could be like if a tire blows out, or you got to get the dental office or something like that, haircut, etc., so on and so forth. Then you got your gas, parking, etc. We live in the Washington state, so there's a lot of parking sometimes we have to pay for. And I'll tell you your total expenses, then it'll let you know what you made that whole month, and then it will let you know what's remaining in your budget. And now when you go to the debt page, which you just click down here to get the debt page, you'll plug in all your different debts here. You'll plug in, if you have student loans, if you have credit card payments, if you have ring loans, personal loans, obviously your auto loans, and whatever loans that you might have. And then see right here, this is an original amount owed. It's always good to have this number, so that way when you're done paying off all your debt, you can look back and go, wow, I paid off $50,000 of debt or $10,000 debt or whatever it is. It just feels good. And then the amount owed at that current date, and then the minimum monthly payment you have to make to get those payments. So keep going. Then you'll go ahead and put the rate, which is the percentage of interest here, and then you'll put right here, which is Rachel was talking about the debt snowball, where you'll pay by the lowest balance first, which will then add to that debt snowball effect. Basically, to kind of explain this is, say you have $500, $1,000, $10,000, $20,000, you'll pay off the $500 first, because then that $500, whatever payments you're making, will go on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So you're paying your smaller debts quicker than having to sit those and last for a long time. So just ignore the interest rates here. And then when it comes to goals, $1,000 emergency fund first before you pay off any debt, and then 6 to 12 months savings after you pay off all your debt, so that way you're good for the next half year to year, and then if you lose a job or something happens to you. But yeah, anyways, hopefully this is helpful for you. You'll have access to this document and you can plug in your numbers here, and this will help you get on track to be able to pay off debt.
That's kind of our helpful tips when it comes to getting debt free. It's a huge blessing to be able to buy things in cash. I'm really looking forward to, in the next 5 or 6 years, to be able to buy things in cash, like a car. That's going to be really cool, or just other things that we're looking forward to, paying for in cash. So anyways, hopefully this video was helpful for you, and we hope to see you again.